This kind of fake perspective tends to be applied for turn-based games. It may be too vague. Games like Fantasy Westward Journey Online, or A Chinese Ghost Story, and so on. They all share the fixed perspective. In these games, buildings are created in 45-degree perspective. And the original painting is also constructed in grid like this. Then let's talk about why they do this. It is easy for them to build in scenes with anything unmoved. And players seem to move, but actually. For example, this is a camera aperture for players' activities. Actually, when creating this map of scene, the retouchers, original scene designers, concept artists, and original painters tend to create building spectacles with this full scene size. As the character working down, the cameras move too. That's because they are binding together. It wouldn't create perspective changes, so it is cost-saving option. With the calculation of a red and green mask, the character could do relatively free move in this scene. There's a habit of Chinese player to use auto pathing find, so there's more impossible to find the bugs in the scene. Then we come back to the topic next. There is another perspective called fisheye perspective. We could take this famous cartoonist Kim Jin-ji for example. His nickname with living printer, and also a rare case to print the fisheye perspective manually. Some of you may ask me, does 4-point perspective exist? Actually, yes, and it could be displayed. It could be saved for the challenge later. Mark it with 45-degree fake perspective. It's a kind of fake perspective. Let's roughly talk about 4-point perspective. Actually, it's not accurate to call it 4-point perspective, but more similar to the so-called fisheye perspective. I could display it to you with 4 vanishing points. It is commonly seen in the illustration. To strengthen its height, vertical filling, or depth. It is one perspective technique used commonly in illustrations. Similarly, paint some radiations. To assist us to build perspective for the scene. Keep on painting. Lower its transparency. Let's draw a box similarly. This little box presents us the 2-point perspective. Then, let's do some adjustment. Let's check gradually. The view is compressed vertically. We could come to the conclusion by observing these boxes. Why in the sense of the fisheye perspective? There are many curves. We could easily get the reason with some simple cubes painted. The vanishing points are the reason of their compression. Just like raising the objects. The higher you raise it, the fatter it looks like. Just like to observe a skyscraper with hundreds of layers. We could easily distinguish those lower floors, but with difficulty to distinguish the higher floors. Why? Because the perspective compressed the view. Higher the floor is, more little could we see. It's the same principle with this image. Actually, it's the same sized box peeling up. You could see this F1 to F3 but have no view of the higher ones. Similarly, we could see B1 to B3 but have no view of lower ones. And also the same outcome of right and left directions. Paint boxes in this perspective constantly. You could find it gradually that the compression of vanishing points makes objects short in view. Their shapes in three-dimensional space was changed. But it produced a striking effect in this scene. This modification of dimensions will broaden the space of scene in pickup technology. It may look more like a wide-angle shot. I will not draw it here. It is just a kind of perspective. It is also a fake perspective. Then I'll not call it 4-point perspective. It is incorrect. This name is too casual and I shall call it multi-point perspective. Combine them, then copy it aside. These are today's knowledge points. That's all for the theory part. I introduced you the 1-point perspective and vanishing point. And it is basic knowledge. 1-point perspective has a strong leading function into our view. The lead of view also commonly used in short language. For 1-point perspective, no matter what kind of building are listed alongside, the vanishing lines will lead our view to the vanishing point. The area of vanishing point is the exact center of visual focus. Next time when we create matte painting, we could use this perspective. The spot of vanishing point decides what we want audience to know. Then the 2-point perspective has 2 vanishing points. Its space expansion will be more obvious. It presents a horizontal expansion. For 3.1, one could be above or below horizon line formed by the other 2. Above is the perspective of upward view, applied for the presentation of skyscraper. Below is the perspective of downward view with view standing high. Just like godlike perspective, there is a perspective we must meet called 45-degree perspective. There's no vanishing point in this perspective. Then the bonus time for fisheye perspective. I call it multi-pointed perspective. It is usually applied in complex composed illustrations. We could see underground and also the sky in it, like the VR, the spherical HDR maps, and so on. Finish introducing the theory. Then I'll introduce a tool for you. It is an online painting assistant developed by Japanese. Then I'll introduce you its working area. It is the view. There we could adjust its size. Here we set a number for it. This is a large format and you can adjust as you like. And this slider controls its depth. You could see 3 white lines here. They are X, Y, Z axis, just like the fundamental grid in 3ds Max. The slider under it controls the strength of perspective. Put it to the very right, we could find the perspective turns out extravagant. When painting striking spectacles, we shall use a grid like this. But usually we just use this one. Take the vertical tip fixed. That is to set center as the 3 white lines node. Rotate the wheel. Now this center point is fixed. What does fixed elevation work for? Let's check it. That's when you look up or down. You can't see it there. For there is a limit in view. When you untick this tool, you can switch the view around. You may easily dizzy when you switch the view. So you make fixed view to observe and paint. When you tick this tool, you can only rotate it horizontally, without inspecting from angle of elevation and depression. That's what's the function there. It's used for adjustment of grid in a scene. It is common used for adjustment of horizon line, height, etc. You can move one of 3 reference plane right there. Here for adding the grid. You may see green grid in the distance. You can add it. And here is a striking good function. Spherical perspective. We generated a grid for spherical perspective. It is a quite strict grid for that. It is troublesome for us to draw spherical perspective grids. It's like a barrel surface similar to fisheye perspective. Let's see a more amazing one. It's actually rare for us to use this one. Thus, it is a really good assistance tool and easy to start with. It is convenient for you to find perspective layout and paint. It requires you no capacity of software operation. What you only need is to left-click these buttons. There is a button for generating PNG. Of course, it may cost you time. Please wait patiently. You can also try to screenshot the image. You can import it as PNG to paint your work by it. You can full screen it and disable it at any time. It is easy and I highly recommend you to use it. That's why I choose to talk about the principle of perspective. Then introduce this software to you. But don't rely on this software blindly, because when you need to do the perspective, it is important for you to have the space imagination. Then this software will really help you. That's all for the first half of the lesson. I will display for you later.